Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in Hardin County, Kentucky. His cabin was very simple. It had wooden walls, a dirt floor, and a small fireplace. The fire was used for cooking and keeping the family warm in cold weather. The cabin had very little furniture, only a few chairs and a table. Abraham's family was very poor. They did not have money to buy many things, and they made most of what they needed. They grew corn, raised animals, and hunted for food. Abraham's father, Thomas Lincoln, was a strong and hard-working man. He chopped wood, planted crops, and took care of the animals. Every day, he worked from sunrise to sunset. He wanted his family to have enough food and a safe place to live. Abraham's mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was very kind and gentle. She cared for Abraham and his sister Sarah. She taught them to be honest, to help others, and to respect everyone. Life was very simple but also very hard. Abraham and Sarah did not have toys like children today. They made their own fun. They explored the forests and rivers near their home. They watched animals and birds and learned about nature. Abraham learned many skills from his parents. He learned to chop wood, to plant seeds, and to care for animals. He learned to cook, clean, and help in the garden. Even as a small boy, he understood that hard work was necessary. He understood that every person must help their family. Abraham was curious about the world around him. He asked many questions. He wanted to know why plants grew, how animals lived, and what happened in the stories he heard from his mother. Nancy Lincoln told Abraham many stories. She told stories about people who were brave, honest, and kind. She told him stories about history and about right and wrong. Abraham remembered these stories for the rest of his life. He learned from them how to be a good person. Life in Kentucky was not easy. The winters were cold, the work was hard, and the family had few possessions. But Abraham's childhood taught him courage, patience, and strength. Even in a small, poor cabin, he began to dream. He dreamed of learning, of reading books, and of one day helping people. These early years shaped the boy who would grow up to be one of the greatest presidents in the history of the United States. When Abraham was 7 years old, his family decided to leave Kentucky and move to Indiana. The land in Kentucky was difficult for farming, and the Lincolns wanted a better place to live. Moving was not easy. They had to walk long distances, carrying their few possessions in a small wagon. The journey took many days, and sometimes they slept under trees or in tents. Abraham helped as much as he could. He carried water, gathered firewood, and helped guide the animals. The trip was tiring, but Abraham learned to be strong and patient. When they finally reached Indiana, they found a small forest clearing where they could build a new cabin. The cabin was simple, just like the one in Kentucky, with wooden walls, a dirt floor, and a fireplace. The winters in Indiana were very cold, and the snow was deep. The family had to work hard to survive. They chopped wood for the fire, planted crops for food, and hunted for animals in the forest. Sometimes, food was scarce. They had to eat what they could grow or find. Abraham wore old clothes, and his shoes often broke. Even with these hardships, he helped his family every day. He learned to carry heavy loads, to chop wood carefully, and to work long hours without complaining. Life in Indiana was difficult, but Abraham also found small joys. He enjoyed exploring the forest, watching the animals, and learning about the plants. He listened to the birds sing and noticed the first flowers in spring. Abraham began to understand the value of hard work and patience. He saw that life could be difficult, but with effort and care, his family could survive and even grow stronger. The move to Indiana taught Abraham many lessons about life. He learned to be responsible, to help others, and to face challenges with courage. Even as a child, he began to dream about the future. He thought about what he could do to help his family and to learn more about the world. These early struggles gave him strength and hope. They showed him that even a poor boy, living in a simple cabin in the woods, could grow up to do great things if he worked hard and never gave up. Even though Abraham Lincoln's family was poor and life was hard, he loved learning. There were very few books in his home, and there were no schools near the forest where he lived in Indiana. But Abraham was curious. He wanted to know everything about the world. He wanted to read stories, learn history, and understand how things worked. Abraham often borrowed books from neighbors or from people in nearby towns. He read every book he could find, sometimes reading by the light of the fireplace at night. The fire was warm, and Abraham would sit close to it with a book in his hands. He read stories about brave people, about kings and heroes, and about people who helped others. These stories inspired him. Sometimes other children laughed at him because he wanted to study instead of play games. But Abraham did not mind. He knew that learning was important. His mother, Nancy, supported him. She told him that reading and knowledge could change his life. Abraham believed her words. He practiced reading every day. He wrote in notebooks he made himself. He learned new words and new ideas. Reading helped Abraham understand right and wrong. It helped him imagine a better future for himself and for other people. Abraham also learned about honesty, courage, and kindness from the books he read. Even though life was difficult, reading gave him hope and joy. He dreamed of becoming a man who could help others. Every book he read gave him new ideas and new strength. Abraham's love for learning was like a small fire that grew stronger every day. It was a fire that no cold winter or hard work could put out. He began to understand that education and knowledge were as important as food and shelter. These lessons shaped him as a boy. They gave him confidence and patience. Abraham's childhood shows that even in the hardest times, curiosity and learning can give hope. He believed that knowledge could help him grow and could help other people too. Even as a poor boy in a small cabin, he dreamed big dreams. Reading was the first step toward making those dreams real, and it stayed with him for his whole life. Abraham Lincoln's formal education was very limited, but he wanted to learn more than any school could teach him. There were very few schools near his home in Indiana, and the teachers were not always trained or kind. To go to school, Abraham sometimes had to walk several miles through forests, fields, and muddy roads. In winter, the snow was deep, and the cold wind made walking even harder. Sometimes, he walked alone, and sometimes he walked with other children. The schools were small, often only one room, and the teacher had to teach many children at the same time. The lessons were short, and there were very few books. Despite these difficulties, Abraham wanted to learn everything he could. He paid attention in class, read whenever he could, and practiced writing. He wrote on pieces of slate or in small notebooks he made himself. Sometimes the lessons were confusing, but Abraham did not give up. He asked questions and tried again and again until he understood. Many children gave up when the lessons were hard, but Abraham's determination was strong. He believed that learning could help him and his family. Walking long distances to school taught him patience and endurance. Sitting for hours in a cold room taught him focus and self-discipline. Even though he had little formal education, Abraham began to teach himself at home. He read borrowed books, practiced writing, and studied arithmetic on his own. These efforts helped him grow smart and confident. Abraham learned that knowledge was not just in schools, it was everywhere, in books, in nature, and in people's stories. He understood that learning required effort and courage. These early school challenges shaped his character. They taught him to face difficulties without fear and to keep working even when life was hard. They gave him the confidence to dream of a better future. Abraham believed that one day he could use what he learned to help others. He wanted to be a person who was honest, wise, and fair. Even as a young boy, his struggles at school showed him that determination and hard work were the keys to success. As Abraham Lincoln grew older, he began to show signs of strong character and kindness. Even as a boy, he cared deeply about other people. He helped his family with daily chores, but he also helped neighbors and friends whenever he could. If someone was sick or needed food, Abraham would carry water or share what little he had. He believed it was important to be honest and fair. Stories from his childhood tell us that Abraham never lied or cheated, even in small matters. He helped his friends when they were in trouble and treated everyone with respect. Sometimes, older boys would fight or take things that were not theirs, but Abraham tried to stop them. He learned that courage was not just physical strength, it was also standing up for what was right. Abraham's mother, Nancy, taught him that kindness and honesty were more valuable than money or toys. She told him that helping others was one of the most important duties in life. Abraham listened carefully and tried to follow her advice. He also learned patience and understanding by observing nature. He watched how animals cared for their young, how birds searched for food, and how the seasons changed slowly but surely. He understood that life required effort, care, and responsibility. Abraham began to develop empathy. He could imagine how other people felt and tried to help them. For example, he would comfort younger children or help friends who had difficulty with chores or schoolwork. These small acts of kindness taught him that a person could make a difference in the world, no matter how young or poor they were. Abraham's honesty and courage also became well known in his community. People trusted him, even when he was only a boy. They admired his fairness and his willingness to help others. These early experiences shaped the man he would become. They gave him the moral foundation to face greater challenges in the future. Abraham learned that character was built through action, not just words. Every small choice he made, every act of kindness, every moment of honesty, helped him grow stronger and wiser. By helping others, Abraham discovered that he could lead by example. His childhood was not only a time of learning and work but also a time of developing the values that would guide him throughout his life. As Abraham Lincoln grew, he learned many important lessons from his childhood. Life was not easy, but each difficulty taught him something valuable. He learned perseverance, the ability to keep trying even when things were hard. Every day, he worked on the farm, helped his family, and walked long distances to school. These tasks were often tiring, but Abraham never gave up. He learned that hard work was not just a duty, but a way to build strength, patience, and confidence. Abraham also learned the value of self-discipline. He set small goals for himself, like reading a book or practicing arithmetic, and he worked steadily to achieve them. He did not wait for someone else to tell him what to do. Even when other children played while he studied, Abraham focused on learning and improving himself. Mistakes were part of his education. Sometimes, he failed at reading a difficult sentence or made a wrong answer in math. But he learned from these mistakes instead of feeling discouraged. Each error taught him a new lesson, and each effort made him stronger. Abraham also learned moral lessons during his childhood. His parents and neighbors taught him the importance of honesty, fairness, and kindness. He understood that doing the right thing was more important than being popular or receiving praise. He practiced fairness with his friends, helped those in need, and avoided actions that could harm others. These early experiences helped Abraham develop the character of a leader. He saw that leadership was not only about strength but also about helping others, being fair, and making wise choices. Abraham also began to understand responsibility. He realized that his actions affected his family, his neighbors, and his community. Even as a young boy, he thought about how he could make life better for others. These lessons, perseverance, self-discipline, learning from mistakes, honesty, fairness, and responsibility, shaped Abraham's personality. They prepared him for the challenges he would face later in life. They taught him that even a poor boy, living in a small cabin, could grow into a strong, wise, and compassionate man if he worked hard and followed the values he learned in childhood. As Abraham Lincoln grew older, he began to think more about himself and his future. He often reflected on the lessons he had learned from his family, his work, and his reading. Even as a young boy, he thought about how he could make life better for himself and for others. He understood that hard work and learning were keys to a better life. Abraham also began to dream about the future. He wanted to help them and make their lives better. He learned that being responsible, honest, and kind was more important than fame or money. These reflections shaped his personality and his dreams. They taught him to be thoughtful, careful, and fair. Abraham began to believe that even a poor boy from a small log cabin could grow into a man of importance. He knew that he would have to work hard, face difficulties, and continue learning all his life. But he was ready. The combination of experience, reflection, and imagination gave Abraham strength, hope, and determination. Even in childhood, he was preparing for a life of service, justice, and leadership. These early thoughts and dreams laid the foundation for the great achievements he would accomplish as an adult. As Abraham Lincoln grew into a young boy, he understood more and more the value of education and hard work. Every day, he worked on the farm and helped his family with many chores. At the same time, he studied whenever he could, reading books by the fire at night and practicing writing in notebooks he made himself. Abraham knew that learning was not easy, especially for a poor boy in a small cabin, but he believed it was important. He saw that knowledge could change his life and give him opportunities that work alone could not. His ambition grew stronger with every book he read and every lesson he learned. Abraham dreamed of becoming a lawyer, someone who could help people and make fair decisions. He thought that fairness, honesty, and courage were important qualities for anyone in a position of responsibility. At the same time, he continued to learn from daily life. Chopping wood taught him strength and patience. Planting and harvesting crops taught him planning and care. Walking long distances to school taught him endurance and determination. Abraham realized that both physical work and mental work were valuable. Life had many challenges, but he learned that facing them with courage, effort, and persistence was the best way to grow. Abraham also learned important moral lessons. His parents and neighbors taught him honesty, kindness, and empathy. He saw that helping others and acting with integrity were more important than wealth or recognition. These lessons became part of his character and guided his ambitions. Even as a child, he understood that leadership was not just about power, but about responsibility, fairness, and service to others. Abraham's childhood was full of both struggles and learning, and he embraced both. He dreamed big dreams but knew that achieving them required patience, effort, and careful thought. He believed that education and hard work could help him succeed, no matter where he started in life. Abraham learned many moral lessons during childhood. He understood that honesty, kindness, fairness, and courage were more important than wealth or power. He learned to treat everyone with respect, help those in need, and face difficulties bravely. These values became the foundation of his character. Abraham realized that good decisions required careful thought, patience, and empathy. These lessons stayed with him for life. Abraham faced many hardships as a child. Poverty, long workdays, cold winters, and limited education could have stopped him. But he never gave up. He learned to turn difficulties into opportunities. Challenges taught him resilience, strength, and hope. Abraham understood that life required effort and courage. He learned that persistence, combined with moral values and education, could overcome almost any obstacle. Through his early struggles and lessons, Abraham prepared himself for the future. He dreamed of helping people, serving justice, and becoming a leader. He understood that knowledge, hard work, and good character were essential. Even as a boy in a small cabin, he believed he could achieve great things. His childhood taught him patience, discipline, and the value of perseverance. These lessons would guide him throughout his life, helping him face challenges as a young man, a lawyer, and eventually as President of the United States. She told him that learning would help him grow and one day change the world. Reading helped Abraham understand ideas he could not see in daily life. He began to think about justice, kindness, and helping others. Learning became a joy, not a task. Even in a small, poor cabin, Abraham's mind grew and his dreams became larger. He believed that knowledge could guide him through difficulties. Abraham did not only read books, he also asked questions and observed the world. He watched animals in the forest, plants in the garden, and the stars in the sky. He wanted to understand why things happened and how the world worked. When neighbors told stories, he listened carefully and asked questions. He wanted to learn from everything around him. Sometimes, he experimented. He tried planting seeds in different ways or building small tools for work. He wanted to see what worked best. These experiments taught him patience and problem-solving. He learned that effort and determination were more important than talent alone. Because formal school was limited, Abraham taught himself at home. He read borrowed books carefully. He practiced writing on pieces of slate or in notebooks he made himself. He learned arithmetic by copying problems and checking answers. He learned new words and ideas every day. Sometimes, he made mistakes, but he corrected them and tried again. Abraham knew that self-education required discipline. He set small goals and worked to achieve them. Even when others played, he focused on learning. These habits helped him grow stronger, both in knowledge and character. Abraham learned that a person could improve through effort and patience. Abraham's childhood hardships helped him build strong character. He learned honesty, courage, and kindness. He helped his family every day. He also helped neighbors, carrying water, sharing food, or comforting children. He understood that being brave was not just about fighting, it was about doing what was right. Abraham practiced fairness and thought about the feelings of others. These lessons shaped the man he would become. Even as a boy, people trusted him because he was honest and reliable. Abraham learned to care for people beyond his family. He noticed when others were sad, hungry, or in trouble. He helped them, sometimes with small acts, like giving food or helping with chores. These acts taught him empathy, the ability to understand other people's feelings. Abraham also learned leadership. He learned to guide friends, solve small disputes, and make fair decisions. Even as a child, he practiced qualities that would later make him a great leader. By this age, Abraham had learned many lessons. He understood the value of hard work, perseverance, and patience. He learned from his failures and mistakes, always trying again. He learned that honesty, kindness, and courage were more important. Abraham Lincoln learned the value of perseverance from a young age. Every day, he worked long hours on the farm, helping his family with chores. He chopped wood, planted seeds, and carried water. The work was tiring, and sometimes the weather made it harder. In winter, snow and cold made even simple tasks difficult. In summer, the sun was hot, and Abraham had to work from sunrise to sunset. Despite the difficulties, he never gave up. He learned that success was not about being lucky, but about effort and determination. Abraham also applied perseverance to learning. Walking miles to school, reading books, and practicing writing all required patience. Even when he made mistakes, he tried again. He understood that small, repeated efforts could lead to big results. Perseverance became a habit, helping him face challenges without fear. Abraham also learned important lessons from failure and mistakes. When he struggled with reading or arithmetic, he did not feel ashamed. Instead, he studied harder and practiced until he improved. Abraham understood that failure was a part of learning. He believed that mistakes were opportunities to grow. This attitude helped him gain confidence and courage. He also learned to be fair with himself and others. Mistakes did not make him angry or give up on life. Instead, they taught him patience, humility, and self-discipline. These lessons became important for his moral development. Abraham learned that it was better to try and fail than to do nothing at all. From his family and community, Abraham learned honesty and integrity. He understood that telling the truth and being fair were more important than winning or getting rewards. Even in small matters, Abraham was known for honesty. People trusted him because they knew he would do the right thing. He did not cheat, lie, or take advantage of others. These qualities became part of his character. Abraham also learned that integrity required courage. Sometimes, telling the truth or standing up for what is right was difficult, especially when others wanted him to act differently. Even as a child, he practiced honesty and fairness, and these habits shaped his moral compass. Abraham Lincoln's childhood taught him empathy. He learned to notice when others were sad, hungry, or struggling. He helped neighbors, friends, and family members whenever he could. Even small acts of kindness, like sharing food or helping with chores, were important. Abraham understood that life was easier when people helped each other. He learned to listen carefully, to be patient with others, and to think about how his actions affected those around him. These lessons of empathy made him kind, thoughtful, and wise. They also prepared him for leadership, because leaders need to understand and care for the people they serve. Through hard work, honesty, perseverance, and empathy, Abraham began to show early leadership qualities. He helped friends solve problems and guided younger children. He tried to be fair in disagreements, making sure everyone was treated equally. People trusted him because of his honesty and kindness. Abraham understood that a leader should serve others, not just seek power. Even as a child, he showed courage, responsibility, and wisdom. These experiences helped him imagine a future in which he could make important decisions to help people. By practicing leadership in small ways, he prepared himself for the challenges he would face as an adult. By this time, Abraham Lincoln had learned how important perseverance and self-discipline were. He understood that success did not come from luck but from effort. He worked hard on the farm and in learning, even when it was tiring. He set goals for himself, like reading more books or writing neatly, and he worked patiently to achieve them. He knew that small daily efforts could lead to great results over time. Abraham also learned to control his emotions and stay calm in difficult situations. He understood that patience, effort, and determination were keys to overcoming challenges in life. These lessons prepared him for greater responsibilities in the future. Abraham learned important lessons from failure. Sometimes he struggled with reading, arithmetic, or chores on the farm. Sometimes the weather ruined crops or made life hard. Instead of giving up, he studied more and tried again. Abraham understood that mistakes were a part of life and a chance to learn. He learned to be patient with himself and others. Each failure taught him resilience, humility, and courage. He discovered that trying, failing, and learning was better than doing nothing. These experiences shaped his character and gave him the confidence to face bigger challenges in the future. As he grew, Abraham often reflected on his life. He thought about his family, his work, and his dreams. He understood the value of honesty, hard work, and learning. He thought about how he could help others and make life better for his community. He remembered the lessons from his parents, teachers, and the books he read. Reflection helped him set goals for himself. He dreamed of becoming a lawyer and helping people through justice. Abraham also reflected on his own character. He wanted to be fair, kind, and courageous. These reflections gave him clarity about who he wanted to be and what he wanted to achieve. Even as a boy, Abraham had ambitions. He wanted to learn as much as possible and grow into a man who could help others. He dreamed of becoming a lawyer and serving justice. He imagined standing in courts, helping people solve problems, and making fair decisions. Abraham knew he needed knowledge, patience, and courage to reach his goals. These ambitions motivated him to work hard every day, both on the farm and in learning. His early dreams inspired him to continue striving for excellence, no matter how difficult life became. Education became very important to Abraham. He realized that knowledge could change his life and the lives of others. He read books whenever he could and practiced writing and arithmetic. Abraham understood that learning required effort and discipline. Even though he had few resources, he made the most of every opportunity. Education gave him confidence, curiosity, and a vision for the future. He saw that with knowledge, he could overcome poverty, help others, and achieve his dreams. Abraham's childhood experiences taught him leadership. He learned to help others, make fair decisions, and guide friends and younger children. He practiced honesty, courage, and responsibility every day. By observing nature, reading, and helping his family, he developed wisdom beyond his age. These skills prepared him to lead communities and, later, a nation. Even as a boy, he understood that a leader should serve others and act with fairness. Abraham Lincoln's childhood shows that humble beginnings do not limit greatness. He started life in a small cabin, with few books and little money. Yet, through hard work, learning, honesty, and courage, he grew into one of the most respected leaders in history. His life teaches us that perseverance, education, and moral values are powerful tools. Even the simplest and poorest beginnings can grow into great destinies. Abraham's story inspires us to work hard, stay curious, and believe in ourselves, no matter the obstacles we face.